What's up, guys? Hope you all had a good trading week. Let's go through my week. We're already on Friday, so there's a lot to talk about. We've seen all the news events come out. We're going to go through them as we go through the charts. I'm going to talk through my weekly breakdown and go from there, really. So we're going to start off on the weekly time frame on EU. What was I looking at? Let's get rid of this. So we looked at last week tapping into this liquidity. We actually failed to break it, but we did obviously close above previous weekly high. Therefore, we know that if we continue to fail at this area, we need to come and take out this low. So I'm not bearish yet, but I'm eyeing it up. We still want to be looking at buys. We did actually create an imbalance on Tuesday, Wednesday last week. Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday. So I'm looking at an entry within this weekly imbalance fill into that daily POI. There's another one here as well. So I did set two, and this is my higher time frame breakdown. Expecting the previous weekly low to be respected. So I pretty much just set two positions in this area. One pretty much at the start, filling in this area, covering the high, getting out of the high. Then we've got another one here higher up. This one's at the imbalance fill, covering that first daily area. So yeah, just over a 50 pip stop loss. Let's get these back to where they need to be. So that was really my weekly setup there on EU. What we can see is we know that we could get a pullback. We're at the very extreme highs right now. EU's been trending up pretty nicely. It's just whether we're going to get that drop. Obviously, if you are looking for sells, you could eye up these kind of areas as well. But I think it's really hard to call a sell yet. I think if anyone wanted to sell, we probably want to see a run of the high for the previous week and a failure. That'd be easier for sells. But as we go to GU, GU's looking a little bit different because we can obviously mark up these areas. Let's go to the weekly time frame. Right, what we can gather is from last week, we saw 2 weeks in a row fail to break this high here. This high is also May's high. So as we go on to the monthly time frame, you can see that when you've had 2 weeks fail already, we haven't really got a bottom wick. We're probably going to need to make a bottom wick to an extent. And that was the only thing about this trade is it weekly confirmation? I've kind of ran with it that it is, and there's a chance that we could still respect previous weekly low and go up. But overall, that didn't end up happening. And it's funny because obviously I didn't look for trades in the previous week because we didn't have a really strong enough close in terms of what we had with the wick. That would have actually played out. And then we've obviously then gone into this week and I've set up a trade. But you can see how it's staggered. I want to go on the weekly and show you as well, like just from how EU's not really been as bullish as GU since 23. We've actually been in a continued uptrend, breaking these liquidity lows that I've spoken about in previous weeks. We're at a very much a high point now, so we could tap into this high liquidity on the weekly. A drop could be coming soon. It's hard to call when it's going to come in. I'm eyeing it up because there's a possibility that we can. But all we've been doing this year so far is filling imbalances and continuing up. So I did not look for a trade back into this weekly this week. I was really eyeing up the previous weekly low being respected, but looking back, didn't really make sense to be respected. I think on the daily time frame, you can see here, we are forming higher highs, but it's almost like an inverse liquidity here. I don't know what you'd call that, a triple top, double top. It does look very weak. So from the 4-hour perspective, we can see that we had a failure here. We took out some liquidity here. We then made a new high, but we did not break that high wick. Therefore, I was eyeing up this area for a trade. So really, I don't even think I was expecting the previous weekly low to be respected if I had a trade set there. I had a trade set at that point, covering into the weekly. I didn't set a second position. I was going to wait for a strong close to confirm the upside, really. So that was my trade idea on EU and GU. Going into the week, I'm waiting for confirms, really, to get that upside with a high to test. Monday didn't go up. We actually saw price stall there. Same for GU. GU actually stalled. And we'll keep that red line on just to see how it reacted. So it retested that area again. At that point, GU was looking really, really weak. And on the lower time frames, a sell made sense. Same for EU, really. The pullback was going to come in. It was very, very clear. As for Tuesday, though, what happened? Because we saw retail sales come in bad for USD. But technical-wise, we saw a lot of dollar strength. There was a tweet that came out from Trump that he was going to get involved in the Iran-Israeli war. And I think, from what I read, that was going to push Powell to cut rates. But obviously, that's what Trump's been trying to get for a while. So maybe there was speculation that the rates were going to be cut, which were going to give USD some temporary strength. Did that end up happening? Well, as we come into Wednesday, we're into two positions on Tuesday. We can see that they did not cut rates. They actually held them at 4.5. So we didn't really see the continued downside off of that. I think if we did see a cut, we would have seen continued downside on EU and GU. I actually got stopped out on Wednesday, so that was a loss I took on GU, so we're out of that. We saw that EU's still holding. So really, Wednesday's close, we filled the imbalance on the daily. It was looking quite good to see yesterday come down, to be honest. And I'm not too sure on GU. We were still holding above this. We weren't closing below this clear liquidity point and the low really that made the high. As we come into yesterday, we did fill the daily imbalance and we respected it. You can see that it tapped the bottom and we held it really nicely. Question is now, are we going to come up or are we not? We've took out Wednesday's high. I'm still in buys. I still haven't been taken out of this trade. This trade's really unlikely to get tagged. GU, seeing what we did on the closure yesterday, we saw a strong closure. So I'm looking at buys today if we get the pullback to continue up. I'm aware that we kind of have on the daily broke to the downside. We've broken the higher lows, but we'll see, because at the minute, my trade idea is pretty simple. I'm looking at this low to this high. We've got Asian range. I'm looking for a price to pull back into this daily POI. Stop loss is literally at the low. Looking to target the overall high. So I still might get a trade idea based on us coming into that weekly POI. So I'm not too worried that I potentially missed a higher time frame entry because a medium time frame's turned up and presented itself. Another thing I want to talk about is you can argue that the buys haven't been good on GU this week, and I could look back at that and like I kind of make sense of it, why it wasn't good. Maybe the entry, the first one that I took. But what I've got to realise here is, and this is where you've just got to trade your strategy. Sometimes you can sit there and go, well, I took 5 wins in a row, the next trade's guaranteed to lose. And whilst I know there's a high probability for that to lose, I could have said that when price was running up here, and I would not have took buys, and I just would have sat out and gone, well, why wouldn't I take that? Because what? We're at the very highs, the highs of the year, already taken out previous yearly high, and we're looking like we're going to see that pullback. Nah, because you can't keep trading what you think. You've got to trade what you see. And this is why I can gracefully take losses in here, because I know that I've capitalised on wins over the past few weeks. Losses are always going to happen, and I'll take them if they happen to come in. And if I take a loss on this and it gets tagged in today, then you know what, so be it. Because yeah, I've been on a winning streak, and you're not going to have that winning streak last forever. You can't just not take trades now because you're in a winning streak. But the point I'm trying to make is, overall, is when you're trading a strategy, you can't look at a loss being bad or a win being good. Every trade you take is equally as good, because you don't know the outcome of the next trade. So you've just got to take them all. And that's where we go on to the live data for this month. It hasn't been great. June has not been great. We had such a good end to last month here, right at the end, that it's tippled into this month, and we've seen very few trades. I took 4 trades so far this month, 3 weeks, so 1 trade a week average really. 1.35R currently. If EU wins, we'll be up 4R, and if it loses, we'll be around break even. So that's really my month. If we go onto the accounts to finish the week, we can see my phase 2 is actually above my funded for some reason. So we've seen 1.5% risk is what I'm taking, only GU. And I don't have in my data more than a 3 losing streak on GU. So I don't mind risking 1.5%. I shouldn't blow that account. Same with the funded. I'm going to risk 1% again, because I believe that there is still enough trades to be taken without losing the account. And it's just based on my data. So why not take 1%? I haven't had a payout on this for a while as well. So I'm still kind of waiting for that. And because we're not really in any drawdown, we're up, we're down 1.5% really, just over 1% drawdown. We've got plenty of time to get that back into profit. We did take a loss on the fivers. I'm on 0.75 risk on EU and GU on this. So we're still currently waiting to see if this plays out. I could get a payout if this comes in. We'll have to see. It'll only be about $1,000. But phase 1 Think Capital, we are still in drawdown. So we're trying to fight back into that, getting to break even. Took the same trades on all the accounts, obviously apart from FTMO. I don't take EU. Everything else is taking all the trades on. We can see that these 2 phase 2s on the 50k, I'm going to risk 1% on the phase 2 because I feel comfortable with that. And if I do go up 3-4%, I can drop the risk to 0.5% risk, 0.3%, depending on how much R that trade is to get me to pass. And we're still really low on the overall funded next phase 1 because I took a loss and I had about $2,700. So I've got to risk less than 1% on the 3 positions that I've overall looked at taking this week to obviously get that up, to try and get that to about 95, 96. Still a long way to go with that. Depending on if we go on a losing streak, I could blow this one. But then I'll just be in 2 phase 2s. And before getting another account of funded next, I'll be getting these over the line and then going for a new one. I think that is the safest option there. So as a whole, I am sticking with these 4 prop firms, and I think I will just stick with these. We'll see, because at the minute I'm really focused on the phase 2s that I've got 300k in. I need to get them passed, so I'm not going to buy a new challenge with the payout that I got last week. I'm just going to focus on building up, put more money into my live account, and then just focus on trading the live as well. So that's really a wrap for the week. What I'd say is this week, what have we seen? Because a lot of traders might be getting frustrated with the way it's moved. I would say that you haven't seen a strong bearish candle in EU yet, because we're not bearish, so you couldn't really expect this week to see that. More, you need to see price stalling on the daily time frame before we get the downside. As for GU has overall gone down if we look at it, but 90% of the movement was from Tuesday. So again, you're not seeing much. Just got to stick in there, wait to see the daily candles form really, and then make a decision based on the weekly closures. As for the rest of the news for the week, we just saw a bank holiday yesterday on USD, which was maybe why it was slow as well. We saw pound rate come in the same as well, so no change there. Retail sales was really bad this morning for pound, and we have seen a bit of pullback on the daily time frame so far with that. Still yet to see a proper pullback for my entry, but we'll see if we get tagged in. This will be getting taken off at 5 PM, and obviously the EU trade that I've got down here is probably not getting tagged, and that will also come off this afternoon. So that is a wrap for this week. We've had 1 loss so far, 1 trade going into next week. We may have 2 going into next week, depending on how we set up. And that is a wrap. That's my week. Hope you guys had a good one. Like I said, take care. See you guys later. Peace out.